The first thing I noticed was the silence. The second was the figure curled beneath my blanket. My heart nearly stopped. I had locked my front door before leaving for work that morning, yet somehow someone had found their way into my bedroom. As I stepped closer, ready to call the police, the woman slowly opened her eyes. When I recognized her, every painful memory from the last 3 years came rushing back. It was my ex-wife's younger sister, Rachel. Her face was pale, her eyes swollen from crying, and before I could ask a single question, she whispered the words that changed both of our lives forever. "Can I stay here?" Before we continue, if you believe kindness can change lives and everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that stay with you long after they end. My name is Nathan Carter, and I lived alone in a quiet neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. 3 years earlier, my marriage to Rebecca had ended after 8 difficult years together. The divorce wasn't explosive, but it left scars that never completely healed. We had simply grown into strangers, carrying different dreams until there was nothing left holding us together except painful memories. After the divorce, I cut ties with almost everyone connected to her family. It seemed easier that way. Rachel had always been different from the rest of them. She was younger, gentle, and never judged anyone. During family gatherings, she often seemed uncomfortable whenever arguments broke out between Rebecca and me. Even after the divorce, she sent me one message wishing me peace. I never replied because I thought closing every door was the healthiest choice. Yet there she was, sitting on the edge of my bed wearing wrinkled clothes, holding a small backpack that looked far too empty for someone planning a visit. She looked exhausted beyond words. Dark circles rested beneath her eyes, and she struggled to meet mine. Slowly she explained that she hadn't come to cause trouble, she simply had nowhere else to go. Her story unfolded piece by piece. Months earlier, she had moved in with her boyfriend in Indianapolis, believing they were building a future together. Instead, she discovered he had been lying about almost everything. His gambling debts became impossible to hide, his temper became frightening, and one evening she realized staying meant risking far more than heartbreak. She packed only what she could carry and left while he was gone. She had tried staying with friends, but couches quickly disappeared. Rebecca refused to let her stay because she believed Rachel had embarrassed the family by leaving another failed relationship. Their parents were living in Florida with serious health issues and couldn't help financially. Rachel admitted that she had spent the previous night sleeping in her car before remembering an old spare key that Rebecca had forgotten to collect after the divorce. Somehow it still fit my front door. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to demand she leave immediately. Instead, I noticed something else. She looked terrified. Not of me, of the world outside my front door. That evening I made coffee while she took the first hot shower she'd had in days. I found spare blankets and cleaned out the guest room that had become nothing more than a storage space. We agreed her stay would only be temporary until she found work and saved enough for an apartment. Days turned into weeks. Rachel found a job at a local bookstore downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but she loved being surrounded by stories. Every evening she came home smiling just a little more than the day before. Slowly the fear disappeared from her face. Living together wasn't always easy. Both of us carried invisible wounds. Some nights I caught myself staring at old photographs I should have thrown away years earlier. Some mornings Rachel woke from nightmares she never fully explained. Without realizing it, we became each other's quiet support system. When my truck broke down, she insisted on driving me to work before her own shift. When she received her first paycheck, she secretly filled my refrigerator with groceries because she knew business at my construction company had been slow. Neither of us spoke much about these small acts of kindness. We simply kept showing up for each other. One rainy Sunday afternoon, while cleaning the garage, I found an old photo album from my marriage. I almost tossed it into the trash until Rachel gently stopped me. She reminded me that painful memories were still part of the journey that shaped us. Erasing them wouldn't erase the lessons. That simple conversation changed something inside me. For the first time since my divorce, I stopped thinking of my past as a failure. I started seeing it as a chapter that had simply ended. Months passed. Rachel saved enough money to rent a small apartment across town. The day she packed her belongings felt strangely heavy. The house that had once echoed with loneliness had become filled with quiet laughter, shared dinners, and ordinary moments that somehow mattered more than grand celebrations ever had. Before leaving, she handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. She thanked me for giving her more than a place to sleep. She thanked me for restoring her faith that good people still existed. She admitted that on the night she arrived, she had nearly given up on life. She believed everyone had closed their doors forever. Mine was the only one that opened. I stood in the driveway watching her drive away, realizing that sometimes we rescue someone without ever understanding how close they were to drowning. Life moved forward again. Nearly a year later, I received an invitation. Rachel was getting married. Not to the man who had hurt her, but to a firefighter named Michael who had met her while volunteering at a community literacy program. He treated her with patience, respect, and the kind of quiet love that never needed to announce itself. As I watched her walk down the aisle in a small church outside Columbus, I couldn't help smiling. She looked peaceful, not because life had become perfect, because she had survived its worst moments. After the ceremony, she hugged me tightly and whispered that family isn't always the people we're born into. Sometimes it's the people who choose compassion when they have every reason to walk away. Those words stayed with me long after the music ended. Years later, whenever people ask me about the strangest night of my life, I tell them it wasn't strange because I found my ex-wife's sister sleeping in my bed. The remarkable part was discovering that forgiveness doesn't always arrive with dramatic speeches or impossible miracles. Sometimes it arrives quietly, exhausted, carrying a small backpack, asking for one more chance. And sometimes saying yes changes two lives instead of one. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in hope, leave a comment, and subscribe for more unforgettable stories that remind us how powerful compassion can be. Before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Please comment with the words, "Kindness always finds a way," if you believe one act of compassion can completely change someone's future. Because in the end, the greatest homes are not built from bricks or wood. They are built from grace, forgiveness, and the courage to open the door when someone has nowhere left to turn. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness becomes the beginning of someone else's miracle, and, without even realizing it, your own.